thank you so much for joining the MPI Marketers and Experience Designer Community monthly education session. My name is Eva Keitel, and I, along with my colleague Marina, host these sessions, and we are super excited to have Christopher Salem giving us some information about finding value for our members in today's session. The title is Let's Go Diving, and I want to encourage everyone to prepare questions. This is intended to be an interactive opportunity, so Chris will kind of guide us through that process and encourage us to contribute to the conversation as his presentation progresses. So without further ado, I would like to invite Christopher Salem. Thank you so much.
Eva, thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here to serve you all today. And as Eva had mentioned, I mean, the topic is just perfect. When you think about let's go diving, I mean, diving means that, we don't know what we're going to find, but it's an experience. And today I'm going to be sharing with you some inside secrets to some things that maybe perhaps but maybe didn't go a step deeper, like if we were diving, to determine if this could create a better experience for people that attend our meetings, our events, and so on. So we're going to use some ideas today that we're going to share that will allow you to get to decide what that means to you and how this can impact your team to put on a better experience going forward for your members. To give you a little background where this information is coming from, I'm an executive coach, corporate advisor, trainer. I'm also a professional speaker. And I work with both individuals and corporations to help build their brands through the power of influence. And it starts from the inside out and helping organizations to really know how to think differently, to be, to become, to do, and have different and better results, and how they project themselves to their audience. And this is not what makes them unique, but what makes them compelling, connecting with them on what I like to call shared values. These things are subconscious. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of things that I've done through my years of experience working with companies of all sizes, and then how this could apply to the meeting event business, and how you can create a better experience for your meetings. So some of the takeaways that you're going to learn from today is how to implement a process that's going to be able to position yourself to be a more compelling authority in terms of how you create a better experience to your audience based on shared values and the power of connecting on those shared values at a subconscious level. I'm going to share with you some examples of some organizations in your space that have done just that in helping to be more compelling and influential, and helping people to draw their own conclusions from that experience and how they can make improvements in their business. And then I'm finally going to discuss a little bit about how do we go about planning this, because without a plan, we can't navigate a course to create a better experience. So throughout this process, even though we're going to be talking for a period of time, we're going to keep this interactive. So if I'll be asking some questions along the way. You could feel free to answer them in the chat box. You can remain anonymous if you send anything to me. And again, the more engagement we have, the more we can learn from one another, and connect in where we feel related to and understood in connecting with this information. And it helps everybody on here or those that will be listening later. So let's go diving. So when you think about a diver, right? Does somebody just put on the oxygen tank and the gear and just jump into the deep waters? No, there's preparation. There's certain things that we have to do. So no matter how long we've been in the meeting and events business, if it's been 1 year, if it's 5 years, it's been 30 years, it doesn't matter. We have to reassess our foundation. So just like if we see a house, a beautiful home, is that house built upon a solid foundation? Because without that foundation, that home is not going to sustain itself. So regardless of where we are in our business, we can still enhance our foundation. So we have to be able to look at, where are we? Where are we with our meetings, the meetings we put on, the events we put on? What has been the feedback today? What can we do different to create a better experience, more engagement that's going to retain attendance, that's going to encourage engagement and really have people walk away with an experience that can allow them to take that to whatever role and duties they have in their profession. So with that being said, what I'd like to see from some of the planners that are on here is, what is your foundation? Or have you ever thought of putting together a foundation, whether if it's personal or overall as a team in your business? If anybody would like to share that in the chat box, again, if you do send it to me personally, I will keep this confidential and just mention what you said, not use your name. Somebody says constantly learning. So yeah, it's a process. Anytime that in any type of business that we're in this case, we're putting on meetings and events, it's all around content and how do we engage that content? How do we apply that content? So we always have to be learning throughout this process. That's great. How about somebody else? What would be some of the things that you can think of with your foundation, whether personally or in the business overall? Somebody says asking for feedback. So feedback is always important. You know, when we look at feedback, without feedback, how do we know how we're going to adapt and make changes to create a better experience? Somebody says innovate every day. Yeah, we live it. When we look at the world we live in a world where there's constant change, a lot of change that's beyond our control. So we're going to have to innovate and be creative to do things that we've never done before that are going to cater to what overall the audience is looking for. Somebody talks about if you keep doing what you have always done, then you'll keep getting the same results. Yeah, that's kind of like Einstein, the definition of insanity. So the thing is that, you know, our foundations are fluid, meaning that we can adapt no matter how long we've been in this business. We can adapt. And when we look at diving, we have to be able to dive deep. We have to be able to determine there's more than just the surface level in how we look at things. We have to look at deeper what is going on behind the scenes that now can create a better a different reality and a different experience for people that attend our meetings and events, that they can walk away with that wow experience and that feeling that they receive value. So let's take a look at what would be the first thing that we can look at, either both as an individual and together as a team. How we look at this is how we think. How do we think first? When you think about that, how can we create something new? How can we become innovative if we don't think about it? So when we talk about thinking, we have to be able to show up in a different type of frame of mind, a different state of being. And that state of being is being in the present moment. Are we individually and as a team, whatever sector or industry that we serve, before we can start putting something together that's going to create a better experience, how are we thinking differently? Because how we think differently in the moment, learning to control what we can and what we know, let go of everything else. And what that means is the only thing that we can control individually and as a team is our communication to ourselves and one another, our behavior, our attitude, our emotions, and our course of action. We cannot control our audience's communication, their behavior, their attitude, their emotions, or course of action. We can only do ours. We can only be a resource in the example to create that environment for them, hopefully, to do the same. So by creating a better experience. We can't control what's going on in each specific industry that we serve. We can't control the economy. We can't control COVID and how that's affected the meeting and event space, as we had to adapt to being more virtual and looking at hybrid events rather than just in-person events. So how we think in the present moment is going to determine how we be. When we talk about be, that is your energy, individually and collectively together, that beingness to then become different, to do different, and have different and better results. So if we're going to have different results and we're going to be able to create a better experience and be more innovative in that process, we can't just go from, thinking to having. We have to be first to become. So what would that mean for each individual that is here? What would that mean for other people on your team? How can someone be first to become? What would be some ideas that you think personally you can do for yourself to get yourself into a clearer frame of mind in the moment where you have clarity, where you have more focus, and the ability to be more decisive, creative, and innovative? What would be some things that you can do to do that individually and through your example and your resource to encourage other people to do for themselves? What would be some ideas that people would like to share? Maybe some of you already do this. Maybe some that you're going to, I'll share some things that might help you to do that for yourself. What would be some habits or disciplines that you can do to help prepare yourself each morning to be in a present state of mind? Somebody says, if you're feeling negative, you have to refocus the energy to manage your emotions. True. So what would be some things that we could do to get ourselves to kind of reframe our way of thinking, to be focused, have clarity, to be in the moment? Somebody says, be an active listener, hear before answering. Yeah, that's so true. We listen to respond, but before we listen to relate and understand. That means truly listening from the heart as well as from here, but really listening from here to see where the challenge is, where's the pain point, what's really important to them, not just what was said or assumed or speculated, but truly by paraphrasing, asking more open-ended questions, and so on. But here's the thing of where I was leading to this, where we can be different, to become different, to do and have. And that is actually having a routine in the morning through meditation, journaling, making your bed in the morning. Now people would say, well, what does this have to do with creating an experience and creating more value with our events and our meetings? Well, again, this is the foundation. We have to go deep to really create this foundation that's going to allow us to think in a different way, to become more creative. The more clarity we have and the more focus we have, the more likely we're going to be able to go outside of a box, or not even have a box at all, to come up with ideas that are going to create a better experience. So meditation on a daily basis, journaling, not overthinking or overanalyzing it, just writing whatever comes to mind to see what could be blocking your way of thinking. Meditation and journaling over time will help to boost an individual's confidence level, their self-esteem. That is going to have a dramatic effect on your decision-making ability to come up with ideas, not fear that you're going to be judged. It's going to help you take calculated risks and to follow through with massive action. Now imagine you're doing that, and now you're being a resource and example for others that are seeing these changes in you to do for themselves. Now imagine your team, now, not to say that they're always going to be on the same page, but that everyone is doing something to really gain that clarity and focus. You're creating more interdependency now in that environment to really make a difference in your industry that you serve, to come up with ideas that could be possibly mind-blowing in terms of engagement and things that maybe haven't been done before or have been done before, but in a different way that creates a better experience. So again, this goes back to the foundation, things that we can be doing that gets us into this frame of mind. And this is often something that most companies that are involved in any type of marketing or advertising or PR or influence tend to overlook. They just think, well, I guess you can just show up and do these things. Well, yeah, of course you can. But imagine how things can really work in a different way if we're thinking differently and with more focus and more clarity on a consistent basis. So having a daily routine can really make a difference in helping us to do that. So now we look at what are the values. So think about our foundation now is our way of thinking, how we think differently as an organization. Now we want the second layer of our foundation. That is our values. What are the values that define who you are And how does that define the people you're working with and what represents your meeting business or your event? What are those values? Who would like to state some values that are important to you and how they relate to your business and to the people you serve, the audience you serve in your business? What would be some shared values that you think that you kind of know what those are right now? Somebody says human connection. Yeah, it's about human connection. See, we're not all going to have the same values verbatim, but we're going to have similar values. And sometimes we might have contrasting values. That means we're never going to be everything for everyone. So trying to force to convince somebody who has different values subconsciously, not going to work. But if we can connect with our audience based upon shared values. So if somebody says there was a blog on routine that I found that works for me. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that. Appreciate putting that out there. So think about the values that I know for me, the values that define me are transparency, being authentic, honesty, being truthful at all times, and integrity, doing the right thing when no one's looking. That's how how my values are in my personal life and in my business. So when I show up through my content that I put out to my audience that's compelling to them, when I'm speaking on stage at an industry event, when I'm coaching a client, when I'm just interacting with people in general, people pick up on those values. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be transparent, honest, and have integrity. Maybe they value trustworthiness, being ethical, people who follow through and commit and do what they say they do. Can those be shared values to mine? Absolutely. So we can connect there. And when people subconsciously feel that they've been related to and understood subconsciously, now they want to know what you do that can help solve a challenge or enhance their business in a way because you're providing content and experts and an experience, start to see things in a different way. So this is where oftentimes values are very important. Now, many organizations may have their core values, but are they really operating from those values? That's the question. When we can actually be to become those values and then do from those values and then have results that we haven't had before from those values, this is what opens up a whole new opportunity or opportunities to doing bigger and better things in our event and meeting planning business. So think of your foundation as how we think differently and the values that we operate from. So these are some common core values for an attendee engagement. Doesn't mean that these are the only ones, but let's just look at some of them that are in general. Most people are going to align in some way with shared values based on integrity and being ethical. Another one nowadays that can be thrown in there is diversity, because diversity inclusion is huge right now, and people respect that. And then when they respect organizations in a culture that provides a level of understanding, like they feel like I feel understood when I'm here. I feel understood when I embrace and engage in your content, when I embrace and engage in your webinars, when I embrace and engage in your your in-person live events, conferences and so on. So it's knowing how to use the power of these values and how this shows up in the content that is compelling to your audience, that's connecting with them subconsciously. Because when people feel they've been related to and understood, what do? They now open up and they're now interested to see what you can do to further help them if they do have a problem. So this is really important, that when we can have a foundation and an understanding of this up front, this can allow us to do really a lot of creative things in not only in our conferences and our meetings, but in preparation for that, the content that we put out there that builds up to this, in our PR, in our marketing, in our social media posts, and so on. All of these working congruently together to really build this engagement. So when they come in, they feel already related to and understood. They're ready. They're ready for an experience. And then if you're aligning yourself with speakers and experts that have similar values and so on, and yet still have the expertise in that particular segment, of course, that they can create a better engagement with the attendees and having a better experience. So in terms of the core values for you, what would be some of these? Somebody said authenticity. What would be some values that your audience really identifies with? What would be some of the values that represent your organization, regardless of size, and what they would relate to? And think about how that could play into any of the content, either before the event, during the event, and even following up after the event. What would that be for you? It can be more than one, of course, but just getting you to kind of think about it for yourself and think about it for your team. Anybody like to put something in? Let me see, I still have authenticity. I can relate to that because I'm transparent, meaning that I'm an open book. I mean, I'm not going to air my dirty laundry, of course, but I am going to be very transparent about what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And I share. I don't tell, I share. And sharing is what connects with people. Telling people how, when, or why to do something puts up a defense mechanism subconsciously. But when we can share from experience, empowering people to draw their own conclusion based on those core values, that's powerful. Somebody says genuine. Yeah, love that. Genuine is definitely plays a part in transparency and authenticity. So some of the things that will help us to prepare is having a plan. And many of you may have a strategy, in place. Maybe you have a business plan and you had one for quite some time, but do you have a value statement? A value statement can be, added anytime. Now, many times people might say this might be your unique value proposition. Well, it can be looked upon it like that. But see, the value statement is not what you do. It's why you do what you do. And sometimes why you do what you do isn't necessarily aligned exactly with what you do. It can be indirect. It can mean that you're just, you're looking to service, humanity. You're committed to giving back to your community or society or whatever that means. People in your industry, not just in what they do, but that you give back to their families and you obviously want to contribute to their work-life harmony and things that can help improve their quality of their lives, whatever that may be. But when we can define that why you do what you do and use that can be used in your marketing, that can be used in your PR, that can be used in your any type of content. Subconsciously, people are catching on to that. They're relating to this. And when we can define our values individually as a team and that overall as an organization and how that relates on shared values to our audience, again, we don't know everyone's values, of course, but if we have a better understanding what those shared values are, the better we're going to be equipped to providing content that is going to connect it with them on a compelling basis. And the more compelling we are is going to allow us then, when they are ready to do something with our events and our meeting conferences, that they're going to be more likely to want to do their part to take advantage and utilize it, that they get the most out of it. They're looking to play a part in having a better experience. So it's about being compelling first before being unique. And how then from that you can solve their challenges, you can create solutions and helping them to do that. It's a two-way street. So, again, having that consistency in that communication, this is where a value statement, starting with the individual, with the team members, the company, and then how that relates to everyone else involved to make your meeting a complete success in adding value at the highest level. So it's just, writing those values down, how that plays into the overall mission, knowing your audience, that niche that you're targeting, and creating influence along the way. Influence is not about persuading people, how, when, or why, why they should be doing something. It's sharing from experience, sharing content that empowers people to draw their own conclusion. So these are just some steps to prepare your value statement. What's the value that you'd like to see people walk away with? What does that lead to something that makes a change in their industry, a change in their organization, a change on an individual level? It's factoring the emotional intelligence, not just the facts, trends, data, but it's looking at what's the experience that we're going to create. Now, sometimes we can't just measure that, so to speak. So we have to use blind faith, but it's knowing that people make decisions based upon emotions. And when we can, help them to make intelligent and more informed decisions in a clearer state of mind, one from a place of peace and joy and happiness, the better we're going to be if they're making those choices from a place of anger or jealousy or shame or guilt and so on. So with that being said, the whole idea is to be really simple and straightforward with your value statement. 2 or 3 sentences tops that really, when people read it, they're going to subconsciously pick up on maybe that one shared value or those shared values in general that's going to connect with them at a deeper level. So here's some examples of some core values of some organizations. So Argus is in the event planning space, and these are some guiding principles that they put out there on their website. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do this, but if you have an understanding of the principles that you operate from as an organization, how is this showing up in everything that you do? How does this show up with the people? How does this show up for you individually? How does this show up with you interacting with each other? How does this show up at your events and your meeting conferences? How is this showing up in the people that are there to receive value at these conferences? So it's not just listing these things, but you have to become it. It's the action. It's how does it show up in your behavior? How does it show up in your attitude, your emotions, your action that you take? How does it show up in your communication? So these are the things that when we can be consistent as a team and being that example for the people we serve in our industry, the more likely people are going to pick up on this. They're going to feel more comfortable in why we do what we do, to now know what we do and how we can help them. Here's another example of Expo Logic by Community Brands. And when you say we care, attitude is everything. So, sometimes these can be cliche type things, but nonetheless, it's not a matter of what we say, but that we be it. Are we being it? Is that in alignment with what we say? I can't emphasize from experience how powerful that can show up in everything that you do when you're creating an event and creating that experience. This is all subconscious. Many times people are not going to even be aware of this consciously, but subconsciously they are. They're connecting with this at a deeper level. Again, when we go diving, we don't know what we're going to find. It's just knowing that if you had a great experience, that's all that matters. So it's really important that when we go back to the thinking part, that we can be, to become, to do, and have different and better results. So how can we now take all of this and wrap this up to create a better attendee experience? Well, it's incorporating things that are going to make things engaging. People are not there to be told how, when, or why to do something. People want to be part of something. They want to contribute. They want to be part of that experience and creating that interaction. What would be some fun activities that you've tried in your events or meetings that have created engagement? What would be some of the things that you can cite here in the chat box that you felt that have really worked well? And what did you learn from it? Would you like to share? Crowdsourcing to solve problems. Yeah. That could be like, getting people into groups, like a little mini mastermind to help solve a challenge, it could be something hypothetical or a real life situation. Yeah, I think that's great. How about somebody else? See if something comes in. All right, so if something does come in, I'll read it off. But fun activities are going to be really fun. I know there was an MPI group, I believe about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe, maybe even longer now. They did something inside where it looked like it resembled a snowball fight. It was like crumpled paper. And in the crumpled paper, they had certain things that they made like a game out of. Like somebody had to read something and then they had to answer it as a group. But they had fun throwing the stuff at each other. Nobody would get hurt, of course. But it really made it fun. And people got a lot of value for it. They didn't feel like they were just listening to someone share this case information. They got to be part of it. So it's taking this new way of thinking and operating from those values and coming up with ideas that will create a better experience. Gamification can play an important role in that. People love challenges. People love to be part of something as a group and coming up with ideas and some solutions, even if it's a hypothetical situation, because it gets people to think about in real life these things that can be happening, but we're still not solving them. And they can get a lot of value from that. It's maybe considering having smaller group discussions, fireside chats, where it's more intimate, more relaxing, where people can now feel like they're like around a fireplace or a fire pit and they're sharing ideas. And just making sure you have a moderator or moderators that can make sure to keep everything on track so somebody doesn't go off on a tangent. This encourages a lot of engagement and create a great experience and a lot of aha moments for people, independent upon what that may be in the industry you serve. Somebody says, go in nature and go for a walk. Yeah, I've seen that happen. Some things where you have things outside, depending upon as long as the weather's good, right? But yeah, it can create a great experience. Technology nowadays, we can use technology in so many different ways. We can send things to people's phones. It can be polls or surveys. It can be a game, something that they can do, and then share their feedback and results with people around them. And a lot of times, depending upon the type of demographic that we're talking to, millennials and Gen Zers, that they're going to retain more information that way. And it's not about memorizing things. Like if we go to school and we memorize something to take a test, that we actually can really, really learn it because we understand it, we feel related to, and we do absorb the knowledge that now we can actually apply it in a real life situation. So it's looking at different mobile technologies and different types of other technology that can help us to really create a more a better learning environment that people can actually utilize this content in ways that make a difference. Somebody says sharing behind the scene pictures of attendees and organizers and presenters. Yeah. Introductions of attendees via small group to expand connections. Love that. Yeah. Making feel people included, that they're just not, that we're being told, we're just being spoken to, that we're being part of an experience where everyone has an opportunity to contribute. Icebreakers, love that. Icebreakers are wonderful. I love to use icebreakers when I do workshops and full day of trainings. So these are just some ideas. Of course, there's more, but nonetheless, some things that you could start thinking of. So what is a long-term solution that we can position ourselves to be more effective in the industries we serve in the meeting space? Well, it's not, again, what you do, but why you do what you do. Position yourself as a trusted advisor, a trusted source. Again, how we think differently, coming from those values with the foundation, to really offer value at a higher level. Not necessarily has to be directly with what we do every time. It can be things that are indirect, but encourage people to really know where to go when they know that they have questions or they require a certain amount of information, that you can help them in their businesses. So what are some characteristics of trusted advisors? Now, again, this is whether if it's an individual or collectively overall as an organization. It's about self-awareness. It's about that, what we talked about, thinking, how we think differently, to coming from core values. Somebody mentioned genuine before. Yeah, Genuine, see, think about people. People relate to reality. We are human beings. We make mistakes. We have flaws. If we constantly position ourselves like we can do no wrong, and that people are not going to relate to that or understand that. People relate to realness. And when we can be genuine and know that when we made a mistake, we can admit that. When we fully understand something, we can bring that to life. And we're not going to, promise anything that we're not good at. But it's being genuine, being authentic, being transparent, and knowing that your mission is to continuously add value. And it's the value that's going to make a difference in people not only coming back, but referring other people to attend your event, encouraging other people to be part of the overall experience. If you have an expo, that they come now, then they be part of the expo, not just the meeting itself. Somebody says empathy. Yeah, empathy is being the example, being a resource. It's not just doing for people. It's empowering people through your example, through your communication, through your action, through your behavior, and allowing them to do for themselves. Powerful stuff. And it's not, again, about who's most talented. It's about showing that you're doing everything from the heart, that this is coming from those values that we talked about. Tom Brady will go down as the greatest quarterback of all time, not because he was the most talented or the most athletically gifted. He was the opposite of that. It was because he thinks differently. He comes from core values. He communicates effectively. He's present. The difference why he was a 6-time Super Bowl winner versus someone that was far more talented physically, but never won a Super Bowl. So again, looking at how never getting away from the basics, staying true to that foundation that is going to, if we nurture that, is going to allow us to grow and elevate our value over time. And it's about solutions, not managing problems. Being in the moment to trust the process and let the results be a byproduct of that, not expectations tied to outcomes. If we operate in the moment, fear cannot reside. Fear resides in past and future thinking. It's tied to expectations to outcomes. We know what happens with expectations. They go unfulfilled. Control what we can, let go of what we can't, and let the process unfold from there. And it's about relationships, not transactions. Knowing that we cultivate and grow through the relationships that we build on those core values. So who are some trusted advisors in your industry? And I'm going to be wrapping up here shortly. Who are some trusted advisors in your industry that you would like to state? People that you admire. These could be people or even organizations that go above and beyond that are committed to their industry, that it's not about what they do, but there's a why to that. There's a purpose. They've made a difference in more ways than one. Who would be some of those people? Meetings mean business, Canada. Okay. Great. All right. So think about who are some of the trusted advisors in your industry, and not that you become them, but you look at what they're doing and what can you do that resonates with you from your values, not their values, but your values as a team. And I'm just going to cover the 5 I's to influence mastery, how you could show up to be more compelling to your audience through your events, through your meetings. It's not just insight and knowledge. It's how it can be presented and be compelling in a way that can be applicable and applied. Keeping it simple, keeping it where people can absorb things in smaller doses that they feel they can make strides and actually moving themselves forward out of a problem into a solution. It's being proactive, taking the initiative to be proactive, knowing that, hey, our industry is like a roller coaster. It's going to have its ups and downs. We can't control that, but we can control, again, how we communicate, how we behave, how we take action, so on. It's being proactive and knowing the things that we can do ahead of time to offset those challenges and create a better experience for our audience. Influence, it's not persuading someone to see your point of view. It's about empowering them to draw their own conclusion by sharing information that allows them to decide what's best for them. And it's doing it with consistent impact. meaning that you're putting out content through different channels that creates value on a consistent basis, connecting with people subconsciously, that they feel like that they trust you and they want to work with you and have a better experience when they attend your events. And again, integrity means doing the right thing when no one's looking. You're never going to be everything for everyone. So it's okay that if you can't help someone, that you can refer them to someone else that might be better aligned. Because when you give without expectation, you receive without resistance. It comes back from somewhere else when you trust that process. So these are some platforms that you can leverage. Again, there could be many more, of course, but the power of video, newsletters, blogs. These could be in your website through your different channels, podcasts, either your own or others, virtual events, things that you could have go between live events. And of course, fireside online chats, which are powerful. I've done quite a few of them, and they just really work really well in building that engagement. But it's coming up with your ideas. Like, what are some other platforms that you can exploit that can really make you more compelling? And then finally, just that, to enhance your events through influence, it's to take all these things that we talked about. And if we're going to raise our influence factor, we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent for ourselves with our daily routine, things that we do personally to elevate our level of awareness and clarity. And then also how we're creating an environment for others to be more effective, to also think in a clearer, more concise manner, to communicate more effectively, to use active listening, and to create a thriving workplace culture that will allow you to do bigger and better things for your audiences that you serve. So understanding, how you can leverage people's strengths, offset weaknesses through systems and processes. That could be through a technology. And how can we do our best to create more personalized experience for people? Now, you can't maybe do that at the individual level in every case, but doing the best we can to have a personalized experience wherever applicable. When people can get involved in some way, that's a personalized experience, giving them that opportunity. And it's all through that interaction that we're going to be able to do this over time. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Striving for excellence, not striving for perfection. And with that being said, I know I wanted to keep it to time because I know I went over a little bit. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address anything that we shared here today, maybe some things that maybe you have that you would like to discuss. I'd be happy to do so. And this is definitely an area that we could all learn from each other. And MPI is in a great position to really do a lot of great things in how we think differently and come from those values to become more innovative, creative, and create better experiences. I believe this is the decade of collaboration. This is the decade of doing things in a different way that we've never done before, that really help to make a difference in people's lives and in their industries. The question is, what are we going to do individually to be part of that and taking that initiative to do it and be the example for others that you work with to do the same? Anybody have any questions?
So everybody that's on the call, if you would like to turn on your video and chime in, this is a great time to do that. If you don't feel comfortable or not in a location where you can do that, please enter the question via chat. Hi, Susan. Hello, Jeff and Deandra, and let's see, Norella, Carrie, if you all can just, jump in just to see each other, I think that would be really great. And whoever has a question, please go ahead and speak up.
And thank you, Susan, for your kind comments. I greatly appreciate that.
You're very welcome. It was a very nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I agree with a lot that you say.
Well, I love it. I love, when we can, it took me, it took me about 6 years to really change my thinking, over time, because I was so fixated on how things should get done. And this was years ago now, but nonetheless, I tell you, it's freeing when you know that you don't always have to come up with the ideas. but you do come with the ideas, but knowing that if somebody has another idea that the team thinks is best, that's okay. It's not about who came up with the idea, who's right or who's wrong. It's like, what's best for the meeting, the conference, the event, and so on. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Norella.
So Chris, when you made mention about having a value statement, was there a situation from an individual level? Because that seemed to be where we start. Should we reevaluate our value statement regularly? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that because we live in a changing world. It's constantly changing. Technology is already doing that. So it's not just COVID and all these other things that happen. I feel that there's going to be constant change. So we always have to be continuously improving. A value statement can be fluid, so it can adapt and it can be changed over time. But it's the most important thing about the value statement is that it's got to be something that relates to the audience you're serving, that when they read it, it's not about what you do, it's about why. So they're connecting with that. They feel like this isn't about them, this is about me. This is about, the people in my industry. I get that feeling. I feel understood. And it's and that's kind of the thing that you want to look at and make sure that again that you connect there. Again, but these can change over time. So depending upon how things change in your industry, you can change that if required. But value statements are really, really important because they have a tremendous impact in how it can play into your marketing, your advertising, your PR, your influence that you create on social media and so on. And that's how people connect. People connect with people. They're connecting with you before the actual event, the meeting itself. It's about people. And that's where this whole concept was really about, what I wanted to share with everyone to allow you to decide what that means to you, if you agree or not, or somewhere in between, that, to factor those things in and how we can do things different in our businesses.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyone else on the call who might want to chime in? So the one quote that I think I'm going to take away from was, when you give without expectations, you receive without restrictions. I found that to be very meaningful, and it resonated. It demonstrated the genuine transparentness that you bring to the table. So with that, I really thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. I think your information was valuable and relevant, not only now, but as we plan forward to continue to solve the experiences, incorporate the needs of our members and clients, and become better at the work that we do.
Absolutely. It's progress in motion, and it's a process. And it's so freeing when we can just learn to control what we can and what we know in that moment. We don't have to grasp onto the things beyond our control. That just takes us out of the zone. We're not in the flow, and we lose our creative juices. We're not thinking clearly, and we fall right back into the same old things that really are not making a difference.
Absolutely. That was very insightful. So everybody on the call, just an FYI, we do have these sessions on a monthly basis. We ask phenomenal presenters such as Chris and others to bring to us some insightful information and wisdom on a monthly basis. Our next one is scheduled for September the 21st. We will promote that out, and we will be using a new platform, and it's called Meet Air. And we're super excited about having that come together, and be on the lookout. And make sure to connect with each other via LinkedIn and stay connected. It's very difficult during this time when we are perpetually disconnected. We are having harder and harder times to come together, but nonetheless, this platform and many others like this, and with the information that we receive from others, helps us renew and refresh. So we hope that you garnered some value from today's presentation.
Absolutely. Somebody said, can you please include that in the chat? Yes, let me do that right now for everyone.
Okay,
I'll do
perfect.
that real quick, Eva. So
That
it's
sounds great.
give without expectations hyphen receive without resistance, or it could be restriction if you like, but if it's resistance.
Okay,
So what that means is when you give without expectation, I'll give a little more clarity here. You're doing it from empathy and kindness, because empathy and kindness means you're being the example because you're filling your cup first to become. People observe. It's like a child observing their parents. Children pick up on what they observe in their parents growing up. Either that serves them or does not serve them. So if we're filling up our cup to do things that are good for us, that allow us to think clearly, you're serving other people through your example. That's through empathy and kindness. Pleasing and enabling, just going out to do, because there's some kind of validation you're looking for from them. That keeps people stuck. It'll make you exhausted and your organization exhausted. So one is interdependent in terms of behavior communication. One is codependent. So there's a gray line. You want to be careful. Boundaries, that you want to have those boundaries. So give without expectation, empathy and kindness. And when it comes back to you from somewhere else, you don't question it. You gladly receive, because just because you gave to someone doesn't mean it comes back from that same source. They might not even tell you thank you. They might just say
Right.
they might have taken, walked away, and you were like, okay. Doesn't matter. It comes back. It comes back in so many profound ways. When you trust that process, it just opens up so many things for your possibilities for your business and you personally.
absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for clarifying, giving it deeper meaning. And I think I'm going to have to post that on LinkedIn and quote you on that. So really appreciate your time. Really appreciate all of you all for connecting today. And until we meet again, be safe and keep smiling.
Thank you.